How are we doing, Christina?
I was wondering, how can I help my aggressive preschooler?
Oh, man. So tell me what you mean by aggressive.
Well, he often hits or destroys things, mostly hitting other people, and it's become more and more of an issue. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the stress of this year, because this year has been a wreck for everyone.
Yeah,
And
so
compounded by COVID.
one of the things I instantly think of when I hear about kids and behavior, especially little kids, but really all kids, is behavior is a language, right? Behavior is just a signal. So what is this little kid trying to say in whatever environment they are in? So walk me back to the beginning of this year for you. What's it been like for you? You say it's been awful and bananas. What does that actually mean?
Well, for the last, well, I was pregnant at the beginning of the year, so that was one thing. So I've had a baby since then.
Okay.
And during the time that the pandemic started, there was a tenant who lived downstairs who was an exchange student, and he wasn't able to go home when he was originally planning to. And he thought that my kids were just too loud and inconsiderate, and he would pound on the floor, so like from below, and it would scare us. And like we had some frightening episodes that eventually led to panic attacks, and we stayed at my parents' house for a time until things settled down.
So you're answering your own question, right?
Partly, but like he's also been aggressive even since he was a little baby. Because as a baby, he would even hurt himself, where like we had to hold him down so he wouldn't like scratch his face or pull his hair out.
Yeah, and some of that for sometimes you start trying to look for the cause of a behavior or the reality of a behavior, and you start grabbing data points from all over the place. Most of the time, a kid who's an infant who scratches himself or pulls their hair is just simply trying to figure out their own body. That would be unrelated to aggression or some sort of inborn anger issue. Now, of course, there could be some psychological issues, but what you've just laid out to me is a lot of stresses. This kid's everything this young kid knows. How old is he? 4?
3.5.
3.5. Okay. Everything in this 3.5-year-old's life has changed. 100%. He had mom's attention. Now he's got to share it. He had a safe house. Now he's got somebody banging on the floors, making him be quiet. He had a mom who had a life that was somewhat routine, and now you're living at somebody else's house. Everything is dumped over. Where's Dad in this picture?
He's been around. He's been working or doing school from home throughout the year.
And what type of dad is he? Is he a connected dad, a plugged-in dad, or a everybody shut up, I'm trying to do school dad? What kind of dad is he?
Most of the time, like, he's really good at spending time with the family when he doesn't have to work on school stuff. But it's been, like, more and more stressful as the year has gone on. So, like, he's been a little bit more tense as well.
Right. And so children, especially young children, but almost all kids really, they absorb that tension and they process it as though it's their fault, and then they spend all of their life trying to mitigate it. And for a kid, that tension is a broken relationship with their caregivers, which is you and your husband. A 3.5-year-old cannot process a new baby has just moved in. A 3.5-year-old cannot process stressed out parents. A 3.5-year-old especially can't process mom and dad are present. They're in the house physically, but they are not emotionally or mentally present because they're having to work from home or do school from home. And so everything in your kid's life has gone up in smoke, if you will. So here's a couple of, so backing out to my original question, what's your kid trying to say? Your kid is trying to tell you that they're not safe, that they are disconnected, that there are no boundaries. Things are free-flowing, and I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know who's going to be banging on our floors, etc. So here's a couple of things I can give you to help you walk through it. Number one, kids are desperate for sleep and nutrition. They are desperate for connection, and they are desperate for boundaries. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
sleep and nutrition, tired, exhausted, over-sugared kids, kids with allergies or discomfort from food that just feel uncomfortable all the time, kids who just are plugged into electronics all the time, and so they don't, when they are asleep, they're not actually going into their full REM cycle sleep. Kids who are not running around outside and are locked into an apartment. And I know that's so hard during pandemic, depending on what city you live in and what jurisdiction you live in, because some are just shut down. You can't leave your apartment at all, ever. And that's wreaking
Mm-hmm.
havoc on little kids. The second thing is they're desperate for connection. And when I mean connection, I mean the whole world stops. You get down an eye level, you look kids in the eye, you touch them a lot. And you've probably heard me say that over and over, whether it's touching their hands or their feet or their face. Having a nighttime ritual that includes lots and lots of safe, heavy touch on a child. Whether that's playing, getting down on their level and playing, laying on your stomach and playing Legos or blocks with a 3.5-year-old that's reading age-appropriate books, right? If there's no abuse and there's no hurt, then connection is a great gift. If there is abuse, if there is fear in a kid, then that connection can be traumatic too. So that's a whole other situation. I don't hear that here. And then the last thing here is boundaries. If a 3.5-year-old feels like they are running your house, and what I mean by that is if they can scream and not eat something, if they can kick and scream and you'll just shove a TV in front of them or an iPad in front of them, then they are in essence running the house. And that destroys a kid. They aren't designed to carry that sort of weight. And they are desperate for mom and dad to put up boundaries, put up barriers that they will lean and press to make sure they'll hold, but they're desperate for them because then it makes them feel safe. It's like swaddling. I remember the first time I swaddled my son, I thought I was going to kill him. Like it was a worst nightmare for me that someone would tie my arms in like that, until a doctor buddy of mine explained, no, that's when they feel safe. They don't feel safe with these wild appendages flying around, scratching them and pulling their hair out because they don't know how they work. They feel safe when they're bound up. And so when you look back over the course of this year, I want you to be graceful to yourself as a mom because it's been chaos. I want you to be graceful to yourself as a brand new mom because you've got a 9-month-old in your house and now a 3.5-year-old. But I want you to do some things that are going to draw some boundaries. Here's some boundaries. You cannot hit in this home. You cannot scream in this home. That's not a tool that works for you. I am going to intentionally put down the little one or give the little one to dad, and I'm going to spend some very direct connective time with you on a regular basis at a regular time if possible. And that way we can build in time boundaries with our kids. We can build in attention, connection boundaries with our kid. I'm going to make super sure that the moment he wakes up, I'm going to give him skin-to-skin contact, direct skin-to-skin contact. I'm going to make sure that before lunch, after nap, and right before bed, there is some direct skin-to-skin contact. And I haven't experienced this, but I've just heard over and over for moms, when you are in this season, when you're still nursing, you still got a young one at home, your body doesn't feel like yours, and the last thing you want to do is touch another kid. The last thing you want to do is touch your spouse. You just don't touch anybody. But I'll tell you, those investments in touch, those investments in eye contact will pay off in a decreased screaming, a decreased biting and kicking, and a decreased language of, will somebody please freaking look at me? Will somebody please acknowledge me? And that's all your 3.5-year-old is doing with as little language as he has. If things like attention, if things like limited screen time, if things like bedtime routines where you're getting a lot of sleep for a young kid like that, probably 10 to 12 hours for a young kid like that, a lot of nutrition, no sugar, very limited stuff out of a box, give a kid as healthy as food as y'all can afford. If those things don't work, then I'm going to recommend you go see a psychologist. But I want you to spend 30 days, double down on the connection, double down on boundaries, time boundaries, double down on space, double down on consistency. And here's the hard thing for moms and dads listening to this. This means that y'all are going to have to be highly, highly intentional. You're going to have to be highly intentional about when you wake up and how much sleep you get, about meal prep and meal prep and meal planning. You're going to have to be intentional about Budgets. You're going to have to be intentional about who does the shopping. You have to be intentional about all those things that couples just let roll, especially when you got a newborn in the house. You're going to have to be overly intentional about it. And then you're going to have to really communicate with your husband. Sounds like he's an awesome guy. Sounds like he's a great dude who's plugged in and trying to help the best he can while doing 2 or 3 other things. Here's the other thing. This is a season and it will pass. This season is hard. This season sucks. This season is weighing on everybody. And if you're in an apartment with an angry tenant surrounding you that does not understand the beauty of little kids and who's a jerk who's banging on the ceiling like an idiot, and if you've got 2 little babies in that house, it's just hard. It just is. And so try those things with your little one. Call me back if they don't work. Call me back if they do work. That would be great to know.